I'm going to level with you folks. I don't even have a funny, quippy thing to open this review with. This was just spectacular. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and as I make my way through the Big Finish 2024 back catalogue, we're coming to the very end of the year. One of the last releases of 2024 from Big Finish was a foray into the Time War with the War Doctor, or specifically the War Doctor Rises range, which started in 2024. After the passing of John Hurt, Jonathan Carley took up the mantle of the War Doctor in a range called The War Doctor Begins, which basically picks up right where the Night of the Doctor left off and followed the Doctor through the Time War. 2023 saw the end of the War Doctor Begins range, and then 2024 saw the rise of the War Doctor Rises range. And with Morbius the Mighty by Tim Foley and Unknown Soldiers by Timothy X. Atack, firstly, what on earth are they feeding the Timothys, the Tims, in Big Finish? I have no idea what's going on there. But secondly, it seems that the War Doctor Rises range is much more interested in telling these longer form stories. Now, the War Doctor Begins range did tell long form stories with the form of the pseudo companion Case, whose story was told in Warbringer, Comrades in Arms, and Enemy Mine, but in more like a single box set tells one big story. And we had He Who Fights with Monsters, which was like this sort of Joseph Conrad Heart of Darkness type of adaptation in the Time War, this epic 3-part saga. And with Morbius the Mighty and Unknown Soldiers, these are 3-hour war epics, for lack of a better term. And the premise of Unknown Soldiers is this: it kind of picks up where the Doctor Who story Rewind from the Battlegrounds box set, also written by Timothy X. Atack, it picks up where that story kind of left off, where the Doctor is trying to save this world that's caught in a time loop, and he's essentially flagellating himself, going through all of these different scenarios and simulations to try and find a way to save the world of Lacuna. While he's isolated himself, while he's running these thousands and thousands of simulations, a group of mismatched individuals are scheming to try and end the Time War. You've got Ormorel, played by Amanda Shadeko, who is a modified Mavellan who crash-landed in London on contemporary Earth, and she's picked up a lot of the lingo and the slang, and she's unlike any Mavellan you've ever seen before. You have Pars, the traitor, who's this disgraced Time Lord former spy, played by Isla Blair, and you've got this disgraced monarch, this disgraced king, Regent Luminum alias Rourke, played by Felipe Boscha. These 3 characters band together, and with Ormorel's tactical thinking and the Mavellan battle computer that she's got access to, are trying to find a way to end the Time War once and for all. And through all of their calculations, through all of their analysis of the timeline, they discover that a moment known as the Moment is what's going to be the catalyst for the end of the war. But how do we stop that from happening with the mutually assured destruction and potentially the end of the entire universe? And not only are they, while they are planning to end the Time War, they do know that this is a mission that they likely will not make it out of alive. You've essentially got this mismatched squad on a suicide mission, like some kind of bad decisions club. Their mission, should they choose to accept it, is to assassinate a key figure in the Time War. And that's where the Doctor comes in.
Look to the display at the center of the room.
This creature has a familiar face. Who is it?
Our target. Large as life and twice as legendary. Here, his current location. And here, the timelines of where he'll be, why, and how it will lead to that locus in time. Our sole opportunity.
I see it. I see it all.
That was fast.
I pay attention. May I?
Be my guest. The 2 dials at the top adjust the scope and
Scope and magnification, I know.
Mavellan, she's been inside one of your ships before.
What can I say? I look good in braids. I know our target, of course.
What spacefaring species would not have heard of this warrior in some way by some weighty name?
Ormorel, you are making a terrible proposition.
The algorithm does not lie.
You can't mean to say, but this man is a great resistance fighter, responsible for the saving of many planets of untold lives.
I won't spoil too much more because Unknown Soldiers goes into some incredibly interesting and distinct directions, but when it comes to how the story pivots at the end of part 1 up until like part 2 to part 3, I might allude to some stuff, but if you want to go in here completely fresh, then I recommend that. But minor spoilers for The War Doctor Rises Unknown Soldiers. What I loved about Unknown Soldiers, first and foremost, is just how incredible the cast are. Of course, Jonathan Carley is terrific as this self-loathing, self-hating version of the Doctor who's trying to do the right thing by any means necessary, and he's getting caught up in the misadventures of this incredibly eclectic group, who include, and I swear this is true, 2 Ogrons, these 2 brothers called Og 1 and Og 2, voiced by Andrew James Spooner, who used to be servants of the Daleks, but were fired because they tried to unionize. But you've got the former King Rorg, who's essentially like a quintessential classic Doctor Who melodramatic baddie. You've also got this incredibly inventive Mavellan character who speaks like a Londoner. I loved her introduction where she's trying to talk to Pars and the Regent, and she's like, okay, have you ever heard a Mavellan tell a joke? This like unambiguous self-confidence that's entirely earned, as you'll learn over the course of the story, and she knows that she's unique and she completely leans into it. She appears in Unknown Soldiers like a fully formed character, as does Pars the Traitor, and I love the Time Lord lore that Timothy X. Atack throws in with this character, because we learn that Time Lord spies, when they are sent on missions from Gallifrey, they have their ability to regenerate removed, because what if they're killed behind enemy lines, or if they're tortured or injured to the extent that they regenerate again, and then there's no use in being a Time Lord spy if you're just immediately outed as a Time Lord because you regenerate. So Pars only has 1 life, but she also has a war wound, which gives her this ability to, at the cost of aging her body dramatically, she's able to look a few minutes into the future, and she's able to use that as like part of the mission. And also in the mission, I know I'm just sort of like going from point to point, but this is such a dense story, but it's all done with purpose. It's all really methodically presented. You have the cast giving these testimonies to a camera, and in the event of their death, they'll be released into the universe so that the universe will know the mission that they try to do. They try to do the right thing despite all of the bad hands that the universe has dealt with them. And it's such a simple but effective and powerful way to really get into these characters' headspaces, including the Doctor as well, who participates in the testimonies as well. But yeah, Pars has got such a wonderfully tragic backstory where she's responsible for the death of billions of people by turning a sun supernova, and she has no idea why she did it, because the Time Lords not only took away her name, because Pars is a old Gallifreyan insult, her own name has been lost to time. They not only removed the memory of her original name, but they also removed the memory of her reason why she did it. So she knows what she did, and she knows the devastating impact that her actions had, but as a brutal form of Time Lord punishment, she's been denied the self-justification as to why she did it, and she carries that guilt around with her. Isla Blair is absolutely phenomenal over the course of this box set. I don't do like Big Finish audio awards or whatever, but if I were to do like best guest actor or best supporting actor or whatever for Big Finish 2024, Isla Blair could walk away with it if I did such a thing. I've not really thought through the implications of this. But another recruit that we get later on in the story is Bevak the Squirm, who I'm assuming is this character in the crosshairs on the cover here behind the Special Weapons Dalek, which, side note, that Special Weapons Dalek looks absolutely gorgeous, and it plays a really cool role in the 3rd act of the story. But yeah, you've got Bevak the Squirm, played by Simon Kane, who is this hamster-sized character who has like a mayfly lifespan where he'll only live for a couple of days. So as a result, he basically has no inhibitions, and he is incredibly fast-talking, he's fast-moving, he's heavily armed, and Simon Kane's performance, it's clearly taking a lot of effort, it's clearly difficult to do, but he makes it sound natural. He makes it sound like this is not an actor in a booth, this is a hamster-sized, running, shooting, blasty character in the Time War who's inhabiting the space. It's a real feat of performance, and it's a real feat of writing as well, because he's essentially a comic relief character, but he is so endearing, he is so, like, humanized that you really endear yourself to him. He's a real great, like, extra spanner in the works in the story, but he also adds a really interesting dynamic that mixes up the team, but in a way that goes beyond, oh, here's the comic relief. Like, no, here's a fully fledged character who's being embodied by an incredible actor.
Yeah, by tomorrow it'll be like a cape. I'll have a cape, lads! But I mean, anyway, I think all told, checks and balances, you know what, boss? I think it's you. You've probably got the cooler scar of the lot. You know, the sort of scar that saves all our lives recently. Well, most of them.
Technically, my scar extends beyond me in all dimensions,
Yeah,
so...
cool scar, really, really cool scar. I think you win.
What about you, Wildcard? You want to play this game too?
Me?
Oh, yes, Uncle, yes, please show us your scar. What's your worst scar?
I have a terrible memory for faces.
How is that a scar?
Oh, it's the deepest of scars. My memory for faces is truly terrible. Terrible because I remember every single one. See it on my mind. If I ever regenerate again, I hope it's into someone who might occasionally forget a face. Just once or twice. The ones without hope. The ones with pleading eyes. The ones just out of reach by the tiniest stretch of the fingers. The ones whose names I knew.
Damn it. I'd say the party is over at this point.
In the story as well, one of the key players is the blind bomb maker, who's played by Adam Martin. Yes, Adam Martin as in AMTV, as in a friend of the channel, Adam. And he's really good here. He's playing this freedom fighter, this resistance fighter, who you could argue is on the right side, but he does have a bit of an ego to him. I think Adam did a great job, like, imbuing this character just through his performance with a real sense of, like, initial moral ambiguity. A guy whose idea of small talk is talking about the best way to immediately die based on the explosives he has on his person. But he also has a really effective and powerful scene with Jonathan Carley's War Doctor in part 3. And yeah, it's really strong drama, really great stuff. The cast across the board are brilliant, including, of course, Nicholas Briggs, who is playing the Daleks, and there's also this phase Dalek, because there's an element of the story where they're on the planet Ume Samberes, where in orbit there's a Time Lord cruiser and a Dalek battleship, and they're firing on each other, and the planet below is getting caught in, like, all the collateral damage, including these, like, time-altering weapons and these time-altering bombs, which causes time distortion, and the squad of unknown soldiers have to predict and calculate when time is going to stop and start again and work around that. Whereas the phase Dalek here is just able to go through those phases in time. It's a really cool concept. But yeah, there's great world building, there's great action, but what really makes Unknown Soldiers a really exceptional and special release is the relationship, is the camaraderie between the titular Unknown Soldiers, and the title drop as well in part 3, that's pretty spectacular. It earns that title of Unknown Soldiers in a really clever and thoughtful way. But they also have nicknames for each other in the group as well. You've got the Boss, which is Paz, you've got the Brains, you've got the Bank, and also the Doctor known as the Wild Card. Thematically, Unknown Soldiers kind of feels like a pure distillation of what the War Doctor range from Big Finish is trying to do, is trying to present with this morally complicated and, like, timey-wimey, ambiguous nature of the Doctor in this incarnation, and it's trying to do the best that you can, trying to do the best for the universe broadly with the baggage that you've been saddled with. It's a story about how far you're willing to go for redemption, how much of yourself you want to put out there for the universe to accept and acknowledge, and how you ultimately want to be remembered and what terms you want to be remembered under. And that's also a facet here with the Blind Bomb Maker. I found it to be an incredibly poignant and powerful and epic war drama with some great Time Lord and Dalek world building, and oh my god, that part 2 ending cliffhanger, that's an outstanding cliffhanger. Jonathan Carley leads the charge in one of the best casts that Big Finish have managed to assemble in recent memory. Helen Goldwyn does an incredible job directing them all through this incredibly thoughtful and introspective and intensely personal war story with sympathetic, heavily textured and interesting characters who they're not all going to make it out alive, and I was just incredibly sad come the end of the story. It's an astonishing piece of sci-fi war fiction. It's one of the best stories in the War Doctor range more broadly, and I'd be absolutely shocked and aghast if this does not make my top 3 or 4 of 2024. I've not properly gone through the list, I've not done a ranking, but of the 60-ish stories, the 60-ish box sets that got released by Big Finish last year, Unknown Soldiers is like near the top of the podium. It's an incredible box set, and Morbius the Mighty was amazing as well. What I love about Morbius the Mighty and Unknown Soldiers as well, that makes them such great companion pieces as well, and just great War Doctor stories, is that in this case the threat and the story, the inciting incident, comes to the Doctor. Morbius the Mighty is a story where the War Doctor is just hanging out trying to like recover from temporal toxemia, and then Morbius essentially puts a bounty out on the Doctor that he has to try and evade and survive. And Unknown Soldiers, the Doctor's just minding his own business, being miserable, and then this Suicide Squad, or Whoicide Squad, I guess, just bursts into his life. It makes the Time War, it makes the universe more broadly feel like a much bigger, like living, breathing universe, and this broken ecosystem in this universe-spanning conflict. And Timothy X. Atack uses all 4 dimensions incredibly efficiently and brilliantly in Unknown Soldiers. Unknown Soldiers is the real deal. It gets my highest recommendation, and I think is essential listening. Thank you so much for listening to my review of the War Doctor Rises Unknown Soldiers. Let me know if you've listened to it in the comment section below. I want to hear from you in regards to your thoughts on the War Doctor range. Hit that like button while you're down there. Subscribe for more Doctor Who and Big Finish reviews. And folks, I'll see you all next time.